pleased to be joined by the vice chair of our caucus. We just concluded our caucus where we listened to our members. We conducted more than 420 programs out in the district, town halls, Congress on the corners, forums in which we were seeking feedback from our constituents. And there's one thing that remains clear. The main issue still remains jobs, jobs, jobs. And what's appalling is that we have an opportunity here again this week to have the transportation bill, one that works, one that affords the opportunity to put the country back to work, and yet no decision and no bill coming forward on the floor of the Congress. In fact, it's been more than some 420 days now since we've seen any kind of action with respect to that. And the simple fact that everybody understands, we've been saying this mantra now for months, job creation equals deficit reduction. For every $1 billion expended in transportation, that creates 35,000 jobs. And in this Republican-controlled House of Representatives, we've yet to see any semblance of a bill that will put America back to work, and they continue not to take up the president's jobs bill as well. The American people are fed up every time we go out and hold a public forum and a public hearing of this basis. They say, why can't Congress come together and create the kind of jobs? Why won't they take up the president's bill and put the country back to work? It's our hope, because we know that there are many rational-minded Republicans on the other side of the aisle that understand the importance and the historic significance of a bipartisan transportation bill aimed not at Democrats or Republicans, but at our respective states and its infrastructure system that is in desperate need of repair. The Academy of Engineers has indicated that 1 in 9 bridges is in need of structural repair. I come from a state where in the early 80s we saw the collapse of the Mianus River Bridge. You know, we have a huge problem in the state of Connecticut. It has been identified by the Department of Transportation and civil engineers, but this is true all across the country, the structural need to make these investments now. We cannot delay any further. I urge our Republican colleagues to get their act together and come to the floor with a bill that will put this country back to work. Javier?
Mr. Chairman, I would just add that you need a repeat, 420 days. That's probably the biggest message from this Congress that we've seen, is that day after day, we continue to see no progress coming from our Republican colleagues who run the House in job creation. And I don't believe any of us, when we started keeping count of the days, tracking the calendar on no job creation by Republicans, none of us expected us to be talking now about 420 days into this Republican majority, and yet no job creation, in the face of a president who has given this Congress several proposals to move this country forward. And the only lucky thing is that in spite of the Republicans with their foot on the brake on the economy, the president has been able to make quite a bit of progress, 3.8 million jobs in the last essentially 2 years. We have continued to see job growth for 19 consecutive months. And we're fortunate that the American people has found a way through all the difficult times start to tick up in its confidence on the economy. But I will tell you this, that if between now and the end of the year we continue to see Republicans trying to foist all these controversial and extraneous measures on top of essential legislation, whether it's the budget or whether it's job creation, we're in real trouble. We almost saw that play out with this conference committee on the payroll tax cut for 160 million working Americans, where the Republicans were trying to insert into that legislation, crucial legislation, things that were totally extraneous to the issues and certainly extremely controversial. But at the end, Republicans backed down. The president was able to move forward a good portion of his jobs creation agenda. And so we'll see. Can we move forward Do we have to wait for brinksmanship to occur again, or will we try to really get America back to work? And sooner or later, folks are going to have to, in Congress, get off the couch and get to work. And if job one in this Congress truly is getting America back to work, then folks have to get off that couch and stop playing games with controversial extraneous measures, and let's focus on what we can agree on bipartisanly to move this country forward.
Thank you. Time for a few questions.
Do you favor capping the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help lower gas prices? I know some in your party have proposed that idea. Mr. Hoyer says he's a little reticent about the idea.
Well, I think it's what we want to focus on is the unbelievable speculation. Back in my district, again, we met with the distributors, primarily small business Republicans, I would point out, who are thoroughly upset with the fact that with all of our refineries full, with us producing and the president doubling the amount of oil that the country has produced, what they're saying is, if Ahmadinejad sneezes, what gives the right of speculators to continue to jack up the price of oil? So it gets back to a Republican-controlled body that says we need no regulations. We don't need to see them. We ought to let the marketplace work. Show me an example where the marketplace works with respect to oil distribution. And yet we continue to provide subsidies to the oil companies. We ought to be taking the subsidies that they get and provide a dividend for every single American so they can afford their home heating oil and so they could could pay for their gas prices. But that's what's, I think that's what's the most troubling thing.
Can I just add, I think the president has it right. He has said our strategy on energy is an all-of-the-above strategy, which should include considering the opportunity or the option of using the strategic oil reserves if necessary. How many of you are stuck behind long lines at the gas station? Not a one. There isn't a problem with supply. It's more the issue, as the chairman just said, of speculation. Now, the difficulty is this. The oil companies are jacking up the prices, but they're not giving the consumers back the money if no crisis occurs. And so the speculation is driving up profits dramatically. And I guarantee you, when Big Oil reports its quarterly profits, you will see hefty profits at the expense of average consumers who are having to spend more for the gasoline. So the reality is this: you got to go after the gougers. You have to make it so that they can't win. One of the tools you might use is a strategic oil reserve, because there isn't a shortage of gas. And as soon as it's clear that the speculators are just driving the prices, guess what? They'll come down. But you have to have the all-of-the-above strategy to be able to go after those who care nothing about the American consumer and care only about it, making as much as they can on profits.
Republicans are offering a jobs package this afternoon. Any thoughts on that?
Well, we haven't seen it, but anything that the Republicans offer with respect to jobs, I think will be a welcome and change. We'd like to see the details and perhaps join with them. And I hope as part of that package they offer the president's plan. I think out of mere courtesy, they should bring the president's plan to the floor. They have the votes. If they don't agree with that plan, modify it or vote against it. But certainly it's long overdue to have the jobs bill come to the floor. And let's hope that they bring them. Amen. Yes.
Going back to the strategic petroleum reserve, are you combining with the Republicans' push for the Keystone Pipeline? Is there concern that they'll be able to paint you as not wanting to lower gas prices and not
I think that might be the attempt, but I think, as the vice chair pointed out, the president has said all of the above. It might have been the same time as Boone Pickens, because that's what he said for so long, going back 4 years. Look, and when you look at what we have in terms of the abundance of natural gas, when you look at 100 years of reserve, there's an opportunity here. So what do we see happening is an artificial manipulation of the market. But also point out that it's an interesting phenomenon that's occurring around here with respect to protection of the oil interest, the interest of the Koch brothers with regard to oil subsidies, but not wanting to see the Natural Gas Act, which has broad bipartisan support, go forward. Yep.
I hope the media, the press, will not buy into this myth that we don't have enough oil. And if so, I hope the next question is, Congressman, did you know we are drilling less? Or Congressman, did you know we're extracting less? Or Congressman, did you know that we actually produce less oil than we did a month ago, a year ago? We're producing more oil today than we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. As I said before, the proof is in the pudding. None of you is spending long hours in a gasoline line at your local gas station. This is all driven by speculation. The manipulators, as the chairman just said. And I think it's shameful if anyone moves forward a message that misleads the American consumer. This is not a time for us to try to spook the American public into thinking there's a shortage of gasoline. This is a time to get the American consumer to recognize that there are folks who are gaming the system when it comes to our gasoline and our energy, and they're making tons of money. We saw it with Enron. We've seen it before, and guess what? As I said, once you see the corporate profits, the quarterly corporate profits of some of the big oil companies, you will understand that it isn't a shortage of gasoline. It's the manipulation of the gas prices, which all falls on the backs of the American consumer.
Last week, AT&T announced in Hartford, Connecticut, that it was converting 15,000 trucks to natural gas. And they noted the reason they were doing this is because the price of natural gas, in order to power those vehicles that are converted, that end up being made in America, engineered here in America, and then powered by American fuel, natural gas was going to be both a short and long-term cost savings for them. The country is going to come to this place, and they're going to come here largely because of efforts like AT&T, but we could provide these savings, and we could provide them to the American public with the enaction of the Natural Gas Act and moving the country forward.
On transportation, you mentioned you want a bipartisan bill, and it seems like Boehner doesn't have the votes to get it across the finish line on his own anyway. So
John Boehner doesn't have the votes in the Republican caucus?
What do you want to see? What would bring your caucus on board? What do Democrats want to see in the bill?
Well, obviously, the Democrats, the estimate is somewhere in the area of $1.2 trillion that's going to be needed over time to properly fund and invest. We want to see the issue be addressed with the structural problems that have been identified by engineers all across this country, and to make sure that there's enough, that there's enough funding into the program so that we get the kind of jobs that we want. As I said before, for every $1 billion of investment in transportation, that's a creation of 35,000 jobs. That's nothing to sneeze at, and that's certainly what we'd like to do, and we would welcome the Republicans coming together. If they can't, we would hope that like-minded people on that side of the aisle, and certainly there are many of them, Bill Schuster and Steve LaTourette, and others who are working hard to try to come up with a rational program. Listen, everybody has highways and road systems and bridges and waterways and levee systems, all of which are in need of help and construction. This has traditionally been a bipartisan effort and something that we would hope that colleagues would be able to come together and put America back to work.
And if I could just really re-emphasize what the chairman just said, this has always been a bipartisan effort when it's come to getting the transportation bill done. It used to be a bipartisan effort. But once again, extraneous controversial measures are being added on to these very important bills, which essentially sabotage them. And as was just pointed out by the question itself, it's not that Democrats are getting in the way, it's Republicans themselves aren't supporting these Republican bills, and on something very important like transportation. The worst part about this is not that the Republicans are playing political games with the legislation, that's crucial. It's the fact that every community in America has contributed to the federal treasury for that transportation money. We all pay the gas tax. We all provide the resources for the federal government then to return those dollars so the communities can improve their roads, rebuild their bridges, do everything we need to get to work. And to stall that crucial legislation that used to always be handled on a bipartisan basis is once again a sign of the failure of this Congress and why we've now gone 420 days without a real jobs agenda in this Congress. Again, the folks that are paying the price are the folks back home. They are so far ahead of the politicians when it comes to getting stuff done. But this Congress is so wrapped up on the Republican side with controversy and extraneous measures that it's keeping even what used to be bipartisan bills from moving forward.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.